Can I add something? Do we have enough time for a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll close the microphones down and
Sorry.
open it up to you.
Sorry.
Okay, my name's Ted Lee. I'm a registered professional biologist. I'm an ecologist. Just a few words. It's been said by staff that I'm the only biologist who disagrees with what staff are doing in terms of protection of sensitive ecosystems. I've been told this in person by staff. The implication is that it is only a disagreement between biologists, and I am the only biologist that believes a certain way. That is totally untrue. However, I take my advice from the expert on sensitive ecosystems in the province. The federal government expert on sensitive ecosystems has said that Gary Oak Groves with lawn and garden underneath are not sensitive ecosystems. The federal government expert on sensitive ecosystems has said that areas in poor ecological condition are not sensitive ecosystems. This is not a professional disagreement. Saanich staff are not following the sensitive ecosystem standards for the EDPA bylaw. Saanich staff need to follow the standards, just like what it says in the ESA Atlas. Thank you.
Question? Thank you. Any questions from our council for Ms. Bull or Mr. Lee? Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bull, and thank you, Mr. Lee, for the presentation this evening. And I do truly appreciate the amount of time that you both in particular have spent on this issue and raising awareness about this issue and raising the profile of concerns with regard to this issue. I think you've done a tremendous job with myself and my colleagues and staff in bringing these issues to our attention, and obviously you've brought a number of very concerned residents into that discussion as well. I chair the Environment Committee, as you know, and in February we asked staff to engage in consultation with respect to the EDPA bylaw. At the time, the thinking was with respect to the proposed amendments to the EDPA bylaw. In discussion with staff subsequent to that, my understanding is that that consultation would be much broader than simply the proposed amendments. In fact, it wouldn't be about the proposed amendments, but about the EDPA bylaw itself. We've received a memo from our Director of Planning that outlines the steps that she proposes for that consultation, and a number of those steps include exactly what you're talking about, particularly contacting each of the affected homeowners. Although it doesn't get into a open house of the style you're talking about with the Cedar Hill tennis courts, certainly I think at a time where anything coming forward with respect to EDPA changes would likely warrant that level of conversation. In advance of that, I think it's important that Saanich do a better job of listening to the concerns. And I think that certainly as somebody who chairs the Environment Committee, it is in, I see, the best interest of this municipality to make sure that the bylaw's intent is clear and that any implications of that bylaw are fully considered as part of its implementation. So if possible, I'm going to turn to our planner to just walk us through what's proposed as the steps for consultation as laid out in the memo.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. A process laid out would include sending letters to individual property owners who have EDPA on their property, informing them of the EDPA, the bylaw, and then inviting them in to discuss with staff as one part of the process. Drop-in open houses would also be held, where there'd be information provided to staff there present to answer any questions about the EDPA and discuss any potential changes or issues that people have with the EDPA. Information displays could be set up at our recreation centers and various other public places in the community to inform the public about the EDPA and provide some contact information for people to contact staff and discuss EDPA. Obviously, we would go to advisory committees again to discuss that, this issue. And finally, a staff report, after all that information is compiled, would go to an advisory committee and then potentially to council, and then eventually onto a public hearing where that public forum could occur.
Thank you very much for that. And I just want to be clear that the steps that are outlined here as consultation are about listening. So this is one of multiple steps that would be part of the process that could ultimately culminate in a meeting where folks would be invited to come and share their thoughts with council. In advance of that, I want to make sure that we have done a thorough job of canvassing affected residents and all interested residents on this issue so that they can have meaningful input into the EDPA.
I think we're still looking for that town hall meeting.
And so I'm not... So I'm not suggesting that the EDPA... I'll just finish. I'm not
Actually, I'm going to
suggesting...
interject here, Councilor Miller, if I can, please. Just for the understanding of the audience and for council, what is it that's being proposed so that we can understand where the disconnect is? Can we hear from our staff or our CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public open house general format is people come and they discuss with staff one-on-one meetings or several people meeting. A town hall meeting, I think what is being proposed would be a format where people come to the microphone, speak to council or to staff in an open session, much like a public hearing. That would be the difference between the open house and the town hall meeting that is being discussed.
And how would notification be done for these open houses? Would they be addressed to landowners, or would they be simply put as ads in the newspaper?
Certainly both could occur. Definitely, there are letters going out to landowners proposed, and the letter could invite the public to the open houses directly, as well as in the newspaper.
Okay, so I heard could and would it be looking for direction from council for that?
Your worship, I think we said specifically that in this case, letters will be sent to all property owners who have their properties included in the EDPA, and I heard that was a commitment made by staff.
So to our delegation, how does that meet your needs?
I think it's a great step forward. I would caution you about putting staff in this kind of situation because you are talking about 2,000 angry people. They are not... But it's a huge step forward. We really appreciate that you are thinking about consultation. I really appreciate this movement forward. But you have people really pissed off. Okay. With one particular staff member, and it's going to be trouble if you put her in that kind of situation. So just a warning.
People are intimidated to speak one-on-one, and it's important to have it as a group session.
I don't know how you can deal with that, but it is a big concern. And I'm not.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, order please. So we're going to have communication to all landowners affected to go to these two public open houses. There was a question from you, Ms. Bull, or I actually forget about new ESAs. Could you please explain that again?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor?
You said people that were affected by new environmentally sensitive areas, they need to be included as well?
Yes, we wanted both the EDPA and the ESA landowners invited.
Okay. And to deal with that, these public open houses with the bylaw in its entirety and not just the amendments?
That's correct. 'Cause, I believe that I said here earlier that implementation of the bylaw by staff has been grossly inadequate with moving goalposts, unclear directions, and unscientific thinking. Bylaw wording has been intentionally ignored or misinterpreted by staff. So we need to get those things sorted out. The biggest concern here is exemption number 14. And so we think that the exemption 14 is clearly written, but it is being interpreted different by staff.
Okay, so a final question to our CEO then. These open houses then have an invitation to all landowners affected by EDPA, those affected by new environmental sensitive areas, and would the public open houses address all issues relating to the bylaw in entirety, not just the amendments that have recently come through environmental natural areas?
Yes, but again, we prefer the town hall, not the open house. Because with the open house, it's just one-on-one, And a lot of the landowners here, I think it's important that they hear all the concerns that are surrounding this bylaw, not just, a lot of people don't understand the bylaw. It's very complex.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So I think we have a good understanding of that. I'm going to hand the microphone back to Councillor Murdoch, and then Councillor Haynes, and then Dermot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say that I don't view the open house, the town hall meeting as out of order or out of scope. I think that that is entirely appropriate as part of this process. What I was suggesting is that before we get to that stage, that we create an opportunity to hear directly from affected residents and interested residents, to gather the input so that we could have recommendations that would go to council, and that could then be the town hall meeting, so that we have some discussion points around what the proposed changes could look like. If you want to reverse that, I think we could certainly do that. I think it would be a more productive discussion if we had a town hall style meeting around what changes are being recommended based on the feedback that we'd heard. That was my thoughts on the process.
All right, thank you. Councillor Haynes?
This is clearly an important file, and it impacts some 2,000 residents in Saanich. The bylaw has been on the books for a while, but it's now getting into the stage of implementation. It's only through this implementation stage that some of the limitations and problems that can arise by implementing the bylaw have become apparent. I did share with Council an email over the weekend that raised some of these issues, so to give everybody thinking time. I do like the report that staff has brought forward. I do recall the presentation at the ENA, and in the minutes it does talk about the option of a town hall and open houses, and it was left sort of open, and Councillor Murdoch has indicated that. Where I have a little bit of concern is people in the audience maybe warning staff or saying how angry they are. That is not an acceptable form of discourse to this councillor. And I hope it's not an acceptable form of discourse to people in this room. Should there be a town hall,